Today on Sekulow, deal or no deal, McCarthy offers compromises.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, welcome to Sekulow. This will be the third day the House of Representatives takes votes on who will become the Speaker of the House. Now, there are some that would like to adjourn even through till next Tuesday to take more time to try to negotiate that in the Kevin McCarthy's camp. You still got holdouts there of about 20 people. There is some talk that about half of that group might be ready to move on and vote for Kevin McCarthy. So we might learn that in the next a half hour or so as the House comes to adjourns. Comes back into session now, right, as we speak. There's also breaking news. President Biden just announced a new border security policy using Title 42 to expel more illegal immigrants, specifically from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela. And if they don't have a U.S. sponsor, 30,000 border crossers a month is what they're trying to do, and that Mexico has agreed to take them back, which has remained in Mexico.
Yeah, it is remained in Mexico. It's not, they're taking the idea of Title 42, not utilizing Title 42, which was a temporary measure. What's interesting here is, does that end up mooting out the Supreme Court case if they, in fact, get this passed? Now, as we're on air live, the president's speaking, so we'll have more on that in really just a few minutes. But interesting that he's going to the border as well.
Yes, he is going to go to El Paso on Sunday. So that literally just happened. The president just came out with Vice President Harris and made that comment. The House is just going back into session now. There have been concessions made to the holdout votes of the 20 who have been voting against Kevin McCarthy, because there's been a lot of questions about, all 20 don't have the same reasons why. You got like 4 who say they never want Kevin McCarthy. He could survive if those 4 were the only no votes. What he can't survive is if there's 5 people like that.
Right.
Then there's a group who wanted changes to the Rules Committee, changes to a motion to vacate, which is to remove the Speaker of the House. We can go through all that. We come back from the break. We'll take your calls as well at 1-800-684-3110. Do you think we get a Speaker of the House today, and will it be Kevin McCarthy?
And we also want to know where you stand on it. I mean, the negotiations are ongoing here. We're going to go through when we come back from the break what the negotiations are focusing on, because you have to understand they're procedural rules primarily, but they have big implications. So we want to take your calls at 1-800-684-3110. Like we've had the last few days, we've had a lot of callers on, so we can get diversity of opinion from around the country. 800-684-3110. We want to hear from you as we are going to get into what Kevin McCarthy, we were saying presumptive speaker. I don't think you could say that right now, although I think it's this vote that comes up this afternoon, the one that's going on right now, will go on shortly. That's going to be a big vote for him.
Yes,
because
if there's been any shift.
If the Chip Roy 10 that Chip Roy talks about come over to Kevin McCarthy,
right,
that's a big shift. If they don't, that's a big problem for Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, either that group of 20 starts to crumble, or they don't. Now, we have not yet had a significant person nominated to be replaced. Steve Scalise has not been nominated by, and none of this, the group of 20 has not come out like it's not like Matt Gaetz and everybody and Laura Boebert all came together and said, Chip Roy said, this is who we want.
Yeah, they voted for the ones that have been put up, but it's not that's more like we got to vote.
Right.
It's not this is who we really want.
Right. You got to have somebody to put up.
And these people are getting 20 votes. I mean,
they're getting that group.
Yeah, it's not enough. Our phone lines are jamming up. 1-800-684-3110. We're going to go through what has been negotiated and what it means for governing. Because at the end of the day, you know what this is about, folks? Governance. And that's where, we want the country governed. We want to get some of these investigations underway by the Judiciary Committee, chaired by Jim Jordan. He's not the chair as long as we don't have a Speaker of the House. We'll take your calls as well, 800-684-3110.
That's right. I mean, so literally the votes should begin in minutes, and we'll know if they start peeling off or not.
Vote.
7th vote, 3rd day. And the question is, does this finish up even this week?
We'll see.
There's real thoughts about it.
It needs to. 800-684-3110. Support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org. Easiest way to do it, aclj.org.
After 2 days and 6 rounds of votes, the House of Representatives has still not elected a leader.
Nearly 24 Republicans have blocked Congressman Kevin McCarthy from taking the gavel, and there's no end in sight.
The engine room of the American Democratic machine is rudderless, unable to choose its leader.
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House.
Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House.
Byron Donalds for Speaker of the House of Representatives.
To find a mess comparable to this, you'd need to go back a century. It's all about this man, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader of a House that now has a Republican majority. So he should be the Speaker. But beyond the backpats, it hasn't quite gone to plan.
The gentleman is recognized.
For a second day, his allies nominated him. But again, he fell short of the votes.
Sure, it looks messy. But democracy is messy. Democracy is messy by design.
Ahead of the vote, McCarthy projecting confidence that he would win eventually.
We're going to continue to talk, and we'll find an agreement where we all get together and we'll work through this and we'll get it done.
But the anti-McCarthy wing of the party isn't budging. And after the 4th round, McCarthy losing another vote. One of his previous supporters voting present, meaning McCarthy was down to only 201 votes in his favor from 202 yesterday, with the 20 hardline conservatives remaining united against him. That's even after former President Donald Trump encouraged them to, quote, vote for Kevin. Close the deal.
This is about more than just the messy mechanics of democracy, because it is exposing the deep, deep divisions within just one party. The Republican Party's majority is so narrow that they can't even get this legislative session open until they literally get their house in order. American democracy is stalled.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. Right now, the House is about to, again, it's like the 7th vote for Speaker. And we've got a good call coming in, 1-800-684-3110. Now, President Biden also just made an announcement. We're going to get into this as well in the second half hour of the broadcast as we're going through it, on border security. And he's actually going to go visit the border. So there's big news there. Of course, so much of the attention, though, is on the fact that we don't have a House that's sworn in. So these members of Congress have not been sworn in. We don't have a functioning House of Representatives or a Speaker of the House. Let's go right to the phones at 1-800-684-3110. Janice in South Dakota on line 3. Hey, Janice.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question today is there somebody else viable to be Speaker of the House rather than McCarthy? Because my personal opinion is he's just going to be business as usual for the Republican Party, and we need to quit the spending.
So there has been no one actually put forward. There's been the protest vote. They have
but let's explain what the protest vote is. The protest vote, because Janice, she asked a great question, is getting 20 votes.
And that's
it's just
because,
whoever they put up that time.
Because
it's
if
not a real option.
Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat, would win. He's getting
correct.
The most votes.
He's getting the most. Right now, he is.
Even you have to watch how many people vote president. If more than 11 vote president, he would also become Speaker of the House. So you've got this situation. I don't think it's fair to say that there is a serious viable option, because the group of 20 has not said it's this person or I'm voting no. They've just been putting someone up every once in a while, a different person. Of course, the next person on the list is Steve Scalise.
Yeah, not logically, but he endorsed Kevin McCarthy and said
they're very
that's
close.
who I'm for. They're very good friends. Jim Jordan said no interest. I want to be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I totally get that, by the way. I think a tremendous amount of authority as the Judiciary Committee chair. Having said all of that, and I think you got to understand what this is. It's not so much who's the next best choice. When Joyce had a great question on that. It's really what can we extract from leadership to get what I would say members that consider themselves marginalized right now to get on committees. So, like for instance, one of the things. Why don't we go through the list? Our ACLJ Action has put together a list of what the negotiations have produced. Then we'll take more calls at 800-684-3110.
This has been mostly between the 20 no votes. And what we think is about, out of those 20, this is about 10 or 11 who are more about procedural changes that they wanted to see happen. The first is to go back to the original rule from 5 to 1, the number of members that are required for a motion to vacate. That's to remove the Speaker of the House. That was the rule for 100 years, that it was only one person. Then you have to have a vote. It's not that one person can remove them. But then what Pelosi actually changed the rule which is how she stayed Speaker so long, was you had to have 50% of your caucus. So that would be the first concession. The second concession is specific border policy legislation. Again, that would allow the vote in the House to move forward. Same on term limits, but that, of course, is not going to move forward in this Congress because the Senate is run by Democrats. But they want to have votes on it. Something that's more substantial, I think, is the Rules Committee seats. The Rules Committee is very important in the House of Representatives, and there would be 2 from the Freedom Caucus and maybe another third that would be guaranteed to a conservative. I mean, they're when they say 2 from the Freedom Caucus, they're naming names here. We just don't have those names yet. There's also been an agreement not to have the super PACs, the Congressional Leadership Fund, which is overseen by the leader of the House Republicans. So Kevin McCarthy oversaw that as minority leader of the House Republicans, to no longer get involved in open GOP seats.
What does that mean for people? People want to know what does that mean?
So it's specifically if it's a seat that's been held by Republicans
and there's not an incumbent,
that the Congressional Leadership PAC will not endorse a candidate.
Got it.
And that's so that you have then an opportunity for more grassroots candidates to get forward.
You also have more opportunity for chaos candidates.
You do. But again, some of the criticism of Kevin McCarthy has been that he barely got the, he didn't think he needed this group.
No, he thought he was going to be plus 30, and he's plus 5, and barely holding that together. All right, we're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. Let's go ahead and take Don's call out of Missouri. I think it's on people's mind about President Trump.
Sure. Hey, Don. Welcome to Sekulow.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate what you guys, bring to the civilized world. It's been a speculation that Trump could be named as Speaker of the House. First of all, what's the plausibility of that? And my second question is, with McCarthy, Matthew Gaetz put out a statement saying that he's a squatter right now in office. What are your speculations and thoughts on that?
So let me on the truth is that you do not have to be a member of Congress to be voted on as Speaker of the House. So you could be, you don't have to be a lawyer to be on the Supreme Court. I mean, so that's just the way it is. So you don't have to be a member. There's no way that the former president, first of all, I can't imagine why he would do it. Second of all, I don't think there's any way he would have the votes to be the Speaker of the House. And you're the former president of the United States, so not likely. Kevin McCarthy, he's getting a lot of flack. I'll tell you something. I'm going to be honest, as we always are. We've worked with him for years, very positively. I mean, really positively. I mean, he's signed on. We've represented him. We got to be careful. I mean, he's one of our clients. I mean, he's been just about every Republican in the House of Representatives has been one of our clients. But he's been on many of our briefs to the Supreme Court. So I want to be clear. You know where our position is. I think that you got 20 people. They're not right now. They can't galvanize more than that. So hopefully there'll be a break in the logjam today. But we're going to keep taking calls at 800-684-3110 because we want to know how you're thinking about all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You've got the concessions. I think we've laid that out. Those are the major concessions. The question is, was that enough for how many? I don't think Kevin McCarthy has to win on this vote.
I think Matt Gaetz is not voting for anybody, except he's going to be don't you think?
Well, I think if you could take those 4, Boebert, Bishop, Gaetz, there's one more, and who said they will never vote for Kevin McCarthy. So they don't care about the coming up with a who's the other one? Andy Biggs, Bob Good, Matt Gaetz, and Lauren Boebert. They said they're not ever voting for him. It doesn't matter the concessions.
Right.
If that was the only 4 he lost, he would become Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. So
by 1.
Yes. That's all he can lose. So the concessions, and then what he has to be concerned about right now,
yes,
is you make too many concessions to this group of 20.
The conservatives
that were moderates.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, pretty conservative folks.
Yeah, they are.
But they're not part of this group of 20. Start saying, you know what? You're giving away everything to this group of
they call them rebels.
Rebels, yeah, whatever you want to say. And what are we going to get returned for supporting you?
Right.
This whole time. Nothing. Yeah. So I think
it's a difficult. I think
I don't know how much more he can do.
I don't think there is any more he can do. I don't know what else he could give up because at that point you're not functioning as a government. Let's go ahead. We're taking more calls. 800-684-3110.
Yeah. Let's go to Victoria, California on line 4. Hey, Victoria.
Hi, thank you. I'm wondering if, because there hasn't been a leadership change, are the Democrats maintaining their leadership roles? Sometimes you get a higher salary. Sometimes you get a bigger staff.
No.
you have certain powers and privileges, and I'm wondering if I think it's chaos on the Republican side. They're just rolling along, giving their little friends prestigious jobs because we can't get it together.
Well, it is chaos. I mean, you're 100% correct. It is chaos, and the Democrats are loving it because it shows that Republicans, we elected you to govern, and you can't get a speaker elected. As a regard, they're not in leadership anymore, but nor are the Republicans. This is the problem. Until we really looked at this, because people say you got to be sworn in. It's not technically not the way it works. To operate under the House rules, which can't be changed now because you're not even, you don't have the leadership there. You have no committees. There are no committees right now. So the Committee on the Judiciary does not exist. The Committee on House Ways and Means does not exist. Oversight does not exist. Foreign Affairs does not exist. So nothing can go to the floor of the House, which is bad for the country. So until you have the speaker selected, then you can have the committee chairmen appointed. But until then, you can't. So that's why we're at a full stop at this point.
Yeah, that is the issue. Is that it's not a functioning House of Representatives. So to your point, the Democrats do love this.
Yeah, they do.
The more this goes on, and so I think if you could finish this up today, I think again it was a crazy few days.
Yep.
And this country moves on. We go back to the border issues, immigration issues. Biden is there this weekend, and people don't harp on it. This goes into next week.
No good.
And Republicans just start looking like, even though they've got the majority, that they can't even get together on leadership. And part of this is you have to compromise when you've got a bare minimum majority. You're not going to get everything you want as a member of a party that has lots of different people in it with different priorities. So I think, again, this needs to finish up.
It sure does. I mean, I think we're at the point where, today would be good. I think the longer it goes, it just shows Republican weak. And that's the thing we want to avoid. All right, we're going to be taking more of your calls when we come back. So we got a lot. We're going to talk about this. We've got an immigration issue. The president already spoke. We're breaking that down for you. We've got a major move at the United Nations. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. We'll also take some of your calls in the next segment as well. So keep calling at 800-684-3110. Let me also thank you again for supporting the ACLJ in 2022 and encourage you to do the same in 2023. Just the best way to do that's ACLJ.org, ACLJ.org. And you need to follow us on our social media. And we're on Truth. We're on Twitter. Of course, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. I'll encourage you. It's just at Jay Sekulow, at Jordan Sekulow, at Logan Sekulow, at ACLJ. And that's a great way to get information on all of the social media platforms we're on. And we sure thank our friends at Rumble for highlighting our broadcast. And if you're watching on Rumble, hit plus. That helps get it in more feeds. Share it with your friends. Facebook, share it with your friends. You know how to do that. And YouTube, you hit the same. We'll be back with more in a moment.
For decades, the ACLJ has battled tirelessly toward the goal of seeing the Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade. As steadfast defenders of the innocent, unborn, we celebrated this historic victory at the Supreme Court. But now it's time to put the hammer down and dig even deeper, because our war at the state level has begun, and we want you to know that we're fully engaged. The ACLJ just launched a nationwide campaign to defeat abortion in all 50 states. In order for this to happen, you need to know exactly what's going on where you live. So part of our campaign includes a layout of abortion laws in each state at the time the Roe v. Wade decision came down. You can find this at our website, aclj.org. And as you'll see, some states were prepared for Roe to fall and had already passed certain laws to protect the unborn. But others remain hostile to life and are moving to enshrine a right to abortion into their state constitution or state law. And this is exactly what we're prepared to take on. The breakdown of laws that we provided is a first step. When there's a fast-moving development regarding abortion, the ACLJ will be the first to know about it and will be ready. Right now, we're calling on states to enact robust protections for life and to vigorously oppose efforts to weaken those protections. This will not be easy, but neither was our last fight. And look how that turned out. When the ACLJ fights for life, we're always on the right side of history. So go to aclj.org right now and join the fight. Kevin McCarthy has been nominated for the 7th time as Speaker of the House, this time by Congressman John James out of Michigan. And he's been someone who's run for a few different seats in Michigan, and now he got elected to the House of Representatives in this cycle. Is making a pitch to get a lot of support in the House. There's been a lot of cheering, a lot of standing ovations. So we are looking to see whether or not the dam begins to break. It's not to say that Kevin McCarthy is going to win on this next vote, but does he start gaining votes again?
You know, the problem with, and they're standing up right now as we're talking. The problem with all of this is, people saying, well, who's it hurting here? And Cece, you said this the other day. It's hurting the American people.
Yeah, it's like they're holding hostage this vote, but what they're really doing is holding the American people hostage. It harms us. We need them to get about the business that they were elected to do, which is talking about securing the border, talking about going after COVID and China connections. Those are the things that we want to know. Weaponizing the federal government against conservatives. Those are the things that we want them to get done.
There's some breaking news, too, on border security. This is interesting, too, in light of just that Biden is going to El Paso this weekend and then to Mexico City for a meeting. El Chapo's son, who was active in the
biggest
cartel,
biggest drug cartel
has been captured. They had some footage of it. It was basically like a military battle going on. I don't know where exactly. He's a major fentanyl trafficker. This is
the largest, I think.
Yeah.
He's been captured. Who it looks like the Mexican authorities got him?
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
And I'm sure we were assisting that. They had the footage. It looked like war.
Well, that's what it is. These cartels they're basically military operations. But this is exactly what is exactly why you got to have border security, which we're going to talk about later in the broadcast. Let's go ahead and take a call. Then I want to give an update on a UN matter.
Yeah, let's go to Chris in Texas online, too. Hey, Chris.
Hey, thank y'all for taking my call. Love the ACLJ.
Thanks.
Y'all been doing it great for a long, long time.
Thanks.
Look, I mean, this whole thing is contrived. I mean, it's real. They're really in real negotiations. Everybody knows how it's going to end. Everybody knows it. All the talk about Liz Cheney. We used to talk about, hey, let's get Rush Limbaugh in there. Let's get they ought to put Donald Trump in there. It's not going to happen.
Of course not.
It'll be McCarthy. It's all contrived. It's just a matter of who gets what. In the meantime, once the numbers get bad enough for each representative at home, they'll say, okay, we've gotten everything we can, and we can all cheer that we fought the good fight and made a victory. There's no crisis. This is just the Constitution in work.
Yeah, Chris, let me tell you, you hit it right on the head. You're exactly correct. I believe it's going to be Kevin McCarthy. I believe this was all not for an alternative. That means some of them may want an alternative speaker, but I think most of it was just negotiation. Don't you think?
I think positioning, negotiation, personal gains.
Yeah. That's what I think.
We're about half are. There's a handful, but again, they did not put anybody forward.
They didn't have they put these people forward, but those were not like the person they really wanted. I hate to say it that way.
No, and in fact, we have a call. Let's take Kevin in Colorado on line one. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just curious about the Matt Gaetz. At the beginning of the campaign, he was talking about the moment the Republicans take back the House, he's going to nominate Donald Trump. That never formulated, but I just was curious about that. If there's any of that kind of thought still.
I think zero.
They could have done it.
They could have done it. I mean, it's not legally, it's not impermissible, but I think there was zero. I don't think there was much support for it. I don't think the former president would want to do it either.
No, he's put in the phone calls for Kevin McCarthy. So, I mean, the people who would have nominated him, he would have said, no, I'm supporting Kevin McCarthy. And he did. We know that because of Lauren Boebert said that on the floor. She said she still thinks that, her favorite president, but didn't like that he made that phone call. Those would be the people that put him forward. If they wanted to pull something like that, they've already had 6 opportunities to do so.
Yeah, right. And they decided not to.
No.
So, all right. We got an update on UN matter. And we're talking about this briefly at the end of the year, but it's a life and death case here, and that's why I want to take just a few minutes to talk about it. Cece, what is the latest? Go back through the case and what we've done here.
Sure. Our office in Pakistan represents, at the time when he was actually arrested, a 16-year-old young boy who was falsely accused of blasphemy. He worked as a janitor in a hospital. he got into a religious conversation with a gentleman who was much older than him, a Muslim man, asked him some questions. And the young boy said, I really don't know. I'd have to ask my dad. In the conversation, though, when the older Muslim man said, well, we have a prophet. His name is Muhammad. Shahzad Masih, who is our client, simply said, my father has a friend who every time he hears the name Muhammad mentioned, that someone's named Muhammad, he curses. Well, that absolutely set off just a craze of events. That older Muslim man got together a whole group of people, got this young man arrested. That was back in July of 2017. He has sat in prison for over 5 years now. We have been doing this trial, yes. And just last month, the court actually sentenced him to death by hanging.
Jordan, unbelievable. And now we've got an office.
Listen to the story, and it's
ridiculous. And you got to understand,
these are just accusations made by the Muslim majority, the radical part of the Muslim majority there, who then put this mob kind of feel, as Cece was talking about, this group together, go after these young kids who knows if he even said that, doesn't even really add up what he's saying.
Right.
And who even said he wasn't very religious and didn't know much about, he said that he didn't know much about religion, not a very religious person. And now they want, then the judiciary bows down to the mob because the mob will kill them.
So we're taking it to the UN. So it's at the UN right now. We filed
Absolutely. So not only have we appealed to the High Court, we have filed with the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, which is a UN body that actually investigates these complaints that we file for arbitrary detention. And they will actually contact the offending country. They will contact Pakistan, and they will say, answer.
If they take the case.
That's right. Answer these, complaints. And every single one of them that we allege against them, every time they've violated a human right, which they have violated many human rights for this young man, they have to answer. And then we will be given a chance to answer back. So it is a process, and the UN Working Group meets 3 times a year. And so we could possibly know something later at the end of this year.
All right, so we're working on it. I just wanted to bring that up to date, folks, because while the stuff's going on in Washington, our offices around the globe are also working here. So our team in Washington is working, but also obviously everything else we're dealing with globally. So that give you an update there. It looks like right now that we're going to go to the 7th vote. I think this is a pivotal. I say this every time. It's going to be a pivotal vote. We're going to take more of your calls when we come back from the break at 800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. Also want to say again, thank you for those of you that supported the ACLJ in 2022, and I'm going to encourage you to do it in 2023 at aclj.org. But also, if you're watching right now on Rumble or Facebook or YouTube, share it with your friends. We've got a lot of people watching on Rumble. Share it with your friends. We've got a whole 30 minutes coming up of the broadcast. You may not get the full hour on your local radio station. A lot of the stations do carry it now. But you go over to SiriusXM, you get the full hour there on Family Talk 131, or aclj.org, or again, Rumble, Facebook, or YouTube. Any of those sources are available. So we appreciate you doing that and supporting the work of the ACLJ.
Yeah, we got more on the border as well. That, again, announcement was made by President Biden. We know about the arrest of El Chapo's son in Mexico. The President Biden is heading to the border this weekend. So there's a lot to talk about at 1-800-684-3110. And the vote hasn't started yet. It's about to start, so we'll see. Does Kevin McCarthy make any gains in this 7th vote on the 3rd day to choose the Speaker of the House? ACLJ.org. Be right back on Sekulow.
In our nation's history, we've never had this happen, ever.
They don't like conservatives. They don't like your viewpoint.
They were going after the free speech of American citizens, and these kind of actions just keep eroding the trust of American citizens in our government.
This isn't about politics. This is about people and people's lives.
They wanted to pressure social media companies to spy on Americans and to eliminate your ability to speak freely.
Your government is weaponizing intelligence agencies to go after their political opponents. That's really scary.
You're not just saying, I want to change, the priorities of the FBI. You're saying, I want to get rid of a lot of these people.
This is driven by expanding the size and scope of government.
This is amping up the political environment to a level that I don't think we've seen in U.S. history.
keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, so right now the House of Representatives, it's come back into order. It is, again, the seventh vote is about to occur. The nominating process, Kevin McCarthy's been nominated, Hakeem Jeffries been nominated, and Byron Donalds again has been nominated. He's been head of the protest vote. So we're seeing, again, the question will be in this vote, does Kevin McCarthy pick up? Not that it remains the same, but does he pick up any of those 20 that have been opposed to him?
And a lot of this has been over negotiations on internal rules of how the House will function. So he's given up. I mean, we've got our ACLJ action team in Washington put together kind of the main points he's given up. He lowers from 5 to 1 the number of members required for a motion to vacate. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's the ability to remove the Speaker of the House. So one can force the vote.
Allow floor votes.
50%.
To allow floor votes to institute term limits on members and to enact specific border policy legislation. He also hit the Rules Committee seats 2 Freedom Caucus members and perhaps a third conservative on a non-House Freedom Caucus member.
We don't necessarily, they like mentioned Thomas Massey as one.
Yep.
Those are people that have been negotiated for those two. Those 2 members are specific people. So that's, I mean, giving up specific.
And they want standalone votes on each of the 12 annual appropriations bills. I don't think these are bad things. I mean, the one dropping it down to 1 could create some chaos on the removal. But I understand it. Well, we're taking your calls. 800-684-3110. I want to take Dave's call out of California on Live 1.
Sure. Hey, Dave. Welcome to Sekulow.
Hey, I appreciate you guys taking my call. Yeah, I've been listening for the last couple of days. I've been supporting ACLJ for a long time. I want you guys to know that, and I'm out in the community. I talk to a lot of people. There's a lot of support for what's happening right now. I think a lot of Republicans, they've wanted the party to stand up and say enough is enough. We're not going to do business the way we've been doing it. We're tired of passing the $1.7 trillion deficit bills, spending bills. We're tired of that. We don't have the money to do that. It's time to take a stand. I believe this is a stand. I don't know if it's appropriate for the timing, but I support it. Jay, like you talked about earlier, you're pretty close to this. You guys have represented McCarthy.
We represented just about every, but to be fair, Dave, and I appreciate you. Hang on one sec. But we've represented, just to be clear, we've represented in Supreme Court cases just about every member of the House of Representatives that are Republican. Including the 20. Yeah, including a lot of the 20, Dave. I just wanted to clear that up, but go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
No, I know that, and I didn't want to make it sound like you were doing something wrong. I think he's a great guy. I don't think he's done his due diligence. I don't think he worked hard enough to make sure that he had.
I agree with you, Dave. I think he did not do what should have been done for the last 2 months.
Yes.
And all of Washington will, I think, agree with you on that. Even the groups in Washington, you would not like the kind of mainstream consultant class in Washington would say a big mistake was a calculation was I'm not going to make concessions to this group 2 months out.
But he should have. Because Dave's right. He should have done this because when the margin was so thin, and Dave's right that the people were reacting.
Your party more.
Yes.
It's again on paper it's a pretty united party when it comes to policy issues, big policy issues. I mean, I don't know how many Americans care about the Rules Committee. It's very important. To how legislation moves forward. But like try to selling that to average folks, it's like, okay, why are you not moving forward as a Congress? But these are all things that could have been worked out before. So I agree with you there on that point. This was a little bit of his own doing, because he wasn't working the group that he needed to work, which was the whole. You could predict who these holdouts were going to be.
100%.
So I think I agree there. I think it's unfortunate this is happening.
The timing is terrible.
Public.
Yeah, because it looks like chaos.
Well, Joe Biden's going to go to the border. He's going to put in a border security measure that just captured El Chapo's son. Meanwhile, they're having the 7th vote for
Speaker
and
of the
laughing
House.
about it.
Yeah. So you can basically get a version of Title 42, but maybe more. I hope it is. All right, we're taking your calls at 800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. We encourage you to sign up on all our social media. We're saying this at the beginning of the year. We figured we'd do that. It's at ACLJ, at Jay Sekulow, at Logan Sekulow, at Jordan Sekulow, and basically anywhere you get your social media feed, you can get it there. And, of course, ACL, American Center for Law and Justice on Rumble as well, ACLJ on Facebook, and same on YouTube. And are you doing a podcast today?
I am. So we'll be watching, too. We'll be watching how these votes come about and they continue on. So check that out as well.
Even after the Supreme Court ordered COVID-era restrictions known as Title 42 to remain in place, scenes like this one along the southern border show no signs of letting up.
What the Republican-led states are saying here, 19 of them who have prevailed for now,
right?
Quote, the greatly increased number of migrants resulting from this termination will necessarily increase states' law enforcement, education, and healthcare costs. They're saying we can't bear the cost of this.
People are overstating what's happening at the border.
The streets of El Paso tonight are the definition of a humanitarian crisis. People rushing to a car carrying food. Children sick and wrapped in blankets.
We just see people running across our freeways and running into our backyards. It's very scary. People are sleeping on the streets. You know, it's completely out of the normal. And again, there is no plan moving forward. And to see that the federal government is just building another tent city, okay, but then what? What comes after that? Are we just going to be building tent city after tent city and we're just going to be housing them? Is that going to be the new normal for us?
There's a record amount of people dying of drug overdoses in this country, especially fentanyl, because the cartels have seized southern control of our border.
Properties being damaged, their fences are being cut, their cattle are being let loose. People are breaking into their houses, they're stealing their cars and trucks.
Places like Yuma, Arizona have tens of millions of dollars of unreimbursed healthcare costs. In places like Arizona and Texas, we are spending tens of millions of dollars on incarceration costs. There's costs to our education system.
I'm worried about the gotaways that you see. And this is just El Paso, folks. 28,550. Nearly 100 suspects from the terror watch list were encountered at the southern border. How is that not a national security crisis?
If we don't stop illegal immigration here and the drugs that come with it, all the crime that comes with that, then the problem's just going to grow for the nation as a whole.
All right, welcome back to Secular. So the vote's occurring now. Right now, I have not seen a change in vote totals yet. It's very early in this seventh vote. So we're going to take calls at 1-800-684-3110. We're going to start going in order because people have been on the line. Bob in Ohio on line 5. Hey, Bob.
Hey, I want to say I've supported you guys for a long time and never thought I would live to see the end of Roe Wade. Congratulations on that.
I didn't either, by the way. So, Bob, I'm with you on that. Listen, those 3 Supreme Court justices, that was quite a moment. Okay, but go ahead.
Now the real fight begins, though, and I'm speaking to every Christian that may be listening out there, is that it's very important on these elections, especially the midterms, because we've got to get rid of the people that are in opposition with everything we're trying to get done. And if you claim to be a Christian and you vote for people that support abortion, you need to really take a look at, going against God's word in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, we were having some issues with the phone line there. So I think, again, remember that policy-wise, it's a united front.
Yes.
This is some of this was
This is all procedural.
Procedure, and then there's a group of only 4 who just don't like Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah.
And that may have been because he didn't support their races.
Who knows?
Leadership pack.
So there's 4 that are like, I'm not voting for never McCarthy.
That's the 4 he can have. He can lose.
But he can't lose 5.
No, right now he's already lost 4 in this current vote.
I mean, he's got to get to...
We'll know pretty soon if he's lost it again. But the question was not so much of this vote, does he win it? It's does he
get the 10 that Chip Roy's talking about coming over? So we're going to find out that soon. We're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. Joy's calling from California.
Hey, Joy.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Go ahead. You're on the air. Thanks.
Hi. I just don't understand what all this fight is about because the Republicans just can't get their act together. The Democrats are always aligned.
Always. You're right. Always aligned. And it's in lockstep. They're always aligned, and this is making it look like government by chaos, which is exactly what the left wants to pinch this as.
Yeah, their far left in their party has not been able to. They just don't have the fights as public. Even like the AOC types, the far left. I mean, the whole squad. They don't really. They occasionally censor them. They come out and say what they said was wrong, and that was anti-Semitic, and that was wrong. But they're not multi-day ballots, and those people don't have leadership roles.
No. So, I mean, look, it looks like right now, I mean, it's too early to tell. I'll tell you what you can tell. Jefferson's going to have 212. That I can tell you.
Yeah.
He will be the highest votes, will be again, folks, on round 7 as it stands right now. It could change in the next 30 minutes, and we'd be off the air. But as it stands right now, it's very probable that Representative Jeffries from New Jersey is going to end up with the most votes. Now, that will not make him, will not get to 218 either. But this tells you how, it's exactly what the caller was saying. Let's go ahead and take Amy in New York City. Hey, Amy.
Hi. Hakeem Jeffries is from Brooklyn.
Yeah, you're right, Brooklyn.
I'm from Brooklyn.
You're right.
So how can we best have these politicians that are holding up the vote, how can we best have our voices heard and say, we are not going to vote for you if you hold up the vote? Do we go on Twitter? Do we go on Facebook? Are you able to create
and I'm just jumping in, Amy, because he just got the 5th vote against him. So we know now this vote is not going to be determined.
It's not going to be outcome determined. Vote number 7 will not be outcome determinative for Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, he's lost. But
now 6, by the way.
So we will see now. But does the 6, does it get to 20? That's what we're going to be watching in this vote.
But she's asking, what do you do? I mean,
I think what you have to do is their constituents have to call. This really has to be. I mean, I could say all of us, but I think it's really about the people that actually voted. In these House districts, like one of the members is a new congressman from Tennessee. People should in his district call.
Yes,
because he hasn't been sworn in yet.
I mean, here's the problem with this. The headlines right now, as we're live, some of you hear us taped live, but as we're live, the headline is McCarthy appears to suffer defeat on the 7th ballot, and that's because there are 6 votes for Representative Donalds already.
Had a bunch of abstention.
So even if he gets some more, that will help, but it tells you what is left to negotiate here. This is the problem, and it is looking like chaos governance.
Yeah, and I think, again, if there's 20 opposed again, Republicans have to look at, okay, is there someone else that needs to be put forward?
Yep.
Not necessarily that this group has agreed to yet, but to call their bluff a little bit.
I think that's right. I mean, part of what they're doing is now interfering with governance. I mean, we all said, okay, 1 day, 2 days. I mean, Rick Renell was on said, okay, it was day 2. Now we're day 3. Tomorrow is day 4.
And then you get to the weekend, then you're next week.
By the way, he's not going to on round ballot 7. Kevin McCarthy's not going to be the person. All right, we're taking your calls 1-800-684-3110, 800-684-3110.
Yeah, let's go to Darlene in Florida on line 2. Hey, Darlene.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I am totally fed up with the Republican Party.
Yep.
And with McCarthy. I'm getting mixed up with McConnell. To me, there's no difference. I don't want a backroom deal. I want them to fight this out and for us to get real governance.
Okay, but understand. Okay, and Darlene, stay on the line with me here. It's all backroom deals. So our ACLJ action broke that down for everybody.
Yeah, this
is all about backroom deals.
20
Understand
renegades are all about backroom deals.
Correct.
They're not doing this. They're not publicly giving you any speeches about what they really want.
No, it's backroom deals.
Have you said any of them say, because I want my seat on the Rules Committee? No, because they would look like jerks.
Right.
You would look like a jerk if you said that. If you said, I'm only voting for you
if you vote
give
for me
this spot. And because that's what this is really about. When we read out to you that they've gotten 3 promised seats, that's not 3 promised in theory. That's 3 people who said, if you don't give me this, and they look like childish. And then you start also saying, it's all politics.
All of it's
and
politics.
And they're all politicians.
Yeah, so I just so everybody's clear, we're giving you the real analysis here. It's all backroom negotiations on technical rules and committee assignments. That's what this is about. Don't think this is some high, lofty, because let's be honest, Kevin McCarthy is not a liberal, okay? He's not a Republican in name only. He's a conservative, but this is all, you got to understand what's really going on here. Let's go ahead and take another call.
Yeah, let's go to Tom in Iowa on line 5. Hey, Tom.
Well, Mike, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
But my question is, why do the Democrats have to keep voting when we know they're going to vote for Jeffers?
You just have to.
You have to keep voting. I mean, they vote. They're making because they've nominated
Technically,
someone.
if enough people voted president, he could become the speaker.
Correct. I mean, we should talk about that. I mean, if people
11.
So
11 Republicans voted president, didn't show up.
Yeah.
To the vote.
What would happen?
And the Democrats got 212. He'd become speaker.
You hear that, everybody? Say that again, Jordan.
So if 11 Republicans vote president or don't show up to the vote, then he becomes speaker if he gets his 212, which he's got every time.
Of course they're going to keep putting him up. But why would you not?
Yeah, because you could get to a chaotic.
Plus, this is looking like chaos, as we've said.
Right,
So
they're united. Every time they're voting, they're showing everybody in their party from the far left to the whatever the middle
and
of
our people,
Democrat
and we've got Republicans sitting down with AOC.
Yeah, because they know they'll get on the screen.
Yes, that's what this is all about. We're giving it to you straight, folks. 1-800-684-3110.
Why do you think Matt Gaetz runs over to AOC? Because he wants to be on TV.
Right.
That's it. So Andy Biggs runs over.
Right.
I mean, it's nothing against him or against her. It's they know the camera's following the radicals like her, so they go and say let's all be radicals together, and the camera will go on us.
Right.
And for a few days, people will talk about them as power brokers. When in reality in Washington, these folks don't make it onto committees usually.
Right. So they're not power brokers. All right, we're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. We're going to take your calls on this, obviously, and immigration. Let's go ahead and take one more call right now. Let's take Kathy out of Kentucky on line 1. Kathy, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I just would like to make a comment that as I've been praying for this process, all that has gone on, I'm thinking, why did they go through and bring back the rules establishing where the speaker could be removed if they didn't plan on following through and holding him to account? And that's what I'd like these folks who are holding out to know.
Yeah, I mean, they got the rule changed. So if he did something that was
right,
so egregious.
I'm with Kathy. So then what? If it's not well, you've got 4 that are clearly, I'm not voting. They're not voting for Kevin McCarthy. They don't like him.
Yeah, they just don't like him.
They don't like him. They're not voting for him. Congresswoman Boebert was on TV last night with our friend Sean Hannity, and she just said, I don't like him.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. And
Chip Roy wanted rules changes.
Yeah, so that's going to be what's going to be interesting here.
I don't know if
what
we've gotten
happens with
his
Chip
vote yet. I don't think so by alphabetical order. The question is, does he change? And does anyone else with him change?
Well, that's going to be, I mean, this is, so even though this is not going to be outcome determining, round 7 of this, day 3, it is going to be interesting to see how these votes come down. We're at 7 right now, 7 no's. It was at 20 and then 1 present. Right now we have no present. We have 7 no's. Let's see how, but they're early in the voting process here. So they're doing an actual manual roll call.
Present now.
There is 1 present. So we're back to the 1 present.
I don't know how it works out.
No, it's 0 present. I'm sorry. Still 0 present. It says others, I think.
Oh, so
it's long distance for us to watch in the studio here. All right, we're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. We got a couple lines open, 1-800-684-3110. We're going to have an update on the border situation. Very interesting development. By the way, ACLJ filing a brief in the Title 42 case, but it's interesting development that the president may be putting in place that actually, I mean, could you imagine? I said this, and liberal groups are complaining about it. So this is like perfect. 1-800-684-3110. Back with more in a moment. When we see something, when we hear something, when we're concerned about an issue, we don't just talk about it. We do something about it. And that goes to our Government Accountability Project.
If we allow leaders in Washington, D.C. to make decisions behind closed doors, unaccountable to the people, then we are going to get skewed and corrupt decisions.
There are lots of other places that do lots of important work for America, but the ACLJ has taken up a lane which is irreplaceable.
The Freedom of Information Act, that's a statute that allows us to get information from the government. It starts with a letter from our offices in Washington to these agencies, and it says, give us this information on these topics. And generally, they don't. And then we go to court.
We go through a series of lengthy negotiations back and forth about what they'll give or what they won't give. We may get tons of information that's redacted, and we have to then go back and say, you redacted too much. We can't really find out what you're giving us because it makes no sense. So it goes through a process of litigation.
That is how you get information, and that office is going to be more active now more than ever.
The ACLJ has been extremely active in vigorously seeking to hold these bureaucrats accountable. We have filed hundreds of FOIA requests. We have received over 20,000 pages of documents in our litigation.
Holding them accountable, holding the Biden administration accountable so that all Americans are able to have faith in their government.
We will up our efforts. We will not stop.
You're finding a nugget in a gold mine. Occasionally you'll come up with something that is really a bombshell, but you have to persist in doing it, and that's what we do.
That's a little bit of what we do through our Office of Government Accountability, and of course that comes under our Office of Government Affairs. So your support of the ACLJ supports all of that.
All right, in other news, which usually this would be a big story. And I think it will become one once President Biden goes to the border this weekend. The news about El Chapo's son, huge trafficker of fentanyl, the arrest that he's been captured by the Mexican authorities, and I mean it was like a gun battle. The images looked like Iraq or Afghanistan, and then President Biden announced this is today, but it's not making a ton of news because of the speaker vote and the ongoing, ongoing votes in Washington D.C. But this is President Biden this morning, Bite 31.
One important part of that agenda is strengthening our border between our nations. And I will visit the border myself this Sunday in El Paso to assess border enforcement operations, meet with the local officials and community leaders, and the folks at the border sending me what they need that they don't have.
So that came from President Biden, and this is, again, kind of the substance here, Bite 33.
Starting today, if you don't apply through the legal process, you will not be eligible for this new parole program. Let me reiterate. You need a lawful sponsor in the United States of America, number one. And you need to undergo a rigorous background check, number two. If your application is approved and you show up at a U.S. airport or when and where directed, you have access. But if your application is denied or you attempt to cross into the United States unlawfully, you will not be allowed to enter.
Let me tell you what that is. That's title basically sounds like, and we haven't seen it yet, Title 42. Title 42 is based on the pandemic. So that was this whole legal issue of is it a temporary fix versus long-term fix? But you've got Mayorkas saying that the number of encounters are out of control and the system can't handle it. That's what he's saying. Then we're going to file a brief on behalf of the states on the Title 42 case at the Supreme Court. So we're going to do that. But at the same time, the president's saying that he's going to announce new immigration restrictions that will enable people to remove quickly without letting them seek asylum.
Yeah, and this is something at the ACLJ we've worked on and kept in front of the American people for years. And so I don't want to appear ungrateful. This is a good step that the president's making. On the other hand, Jay, there are those who say it's too little too late. Just in the last 2 years, almost 5 million people have been apprehended crossing the border illegally. We also know that out of that group, over 100 that they apprehended were on the terror watch list. But you add to that almost 700,000 gotaways last year, and we don't know how many of those are on the terror watch list. And so when the president says he's going to the border, he wants to give the CBP whatever they need.
Yeah.
What they need is a wall along the border to stop drug trafficking
100%.
and sex trafficking, because the drug traffickers and sex traffickers, they don't use ports of entry. They go across in the gap.
But here's what's interesting. The measure that the president's proposing, this is a piece in the Washington Post, folks. This is what they say. The measures which are likely to draw legal challenges from immigration advocates will expand and expedite legal pathways for orderly migration. In other words, as with the term we're using, those would be lawful entrance to the United States and result in new consequences for those who fail to use legal pathways. Unlawful entrance to the United States. That's exactly what we've been advocating here at the ACLJ. Now, here's the irony. So let's say this bill or whatever it is, executive order, whatever it becomes, passes. And it gets a challenge from the ACLU and the National Immigration Association. So they file a lawsuit. You understand what could happen here? We gotta defend the policy. The fact that the policy is presented by President Biden doesn't mean we don't defend it if we think it's the right policy here. Now, we got to see what that policy actually is. But if it's to deal with unlawful entrance, of course you want to deal with that.
Yeah, we're grateful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, listen, this would be a success, folks. I mean, this could, until I see it, I don't believe it. But if it does happen, and obviously something's going to happen because it triggered him, the president, to go down there. So he could say, I met with the Border Patrol, I met with ICE, I met with immigration, and I'll tell you something, folks, we've got to do something here dramatic because it's out of control.
Yeah, and again, a lot of people in his own party and on the left are not going to like this. If it is how it is being described, which is basically reinstating remain in Mexico, a stronger Title 42. I mean, listen, some of this is existing law.
Yep.
Some of this, you could have done this the whole time.
Yes.
The fact that you're not eligible if you don't go through the legal process, correct. They just weren't enforcing it. So now they're going to enforce basic immigration law in the United States. And that's the real test is this just words to try and address this issue, or do we see a significant change? Because what will happen is less people will try to cross the border. We'll know if they're actually enforcing these rules.
We will. All right, we're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. We're going right back to the Speaker of the House. It looks like there are 10. Here's interesting. There are 10 no's right now, votes against McCarthy. There's one other. We don't know who that is.
It was Gates for Trump.
It was Gates for Trump. Okay. Are you
Which
shocked?
Means, again, he doesn't really care about Byron Donald.
Right. He abandoned Donald. So he's that congressman who was so this is what we're telling you, folks. These aren't consensus candidates that they're coming up with. This is protest votes. Let's go ahead and
yeah, exactly. 7th round protest votes.
So they're still voting, correct, Will? Yeah. So interesting. All right, let's go ahead and take another phone call, Jordan.
Yeah, back to the phones we go. Eileen in Alaska online too. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Do I need to turn the video, put it on pause, the video, so it doesn't conflict?
I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. We'll come back to you in a moment. Let's go to Jim in Maryland on line 4.
Hey, thank you very much for taking my call. The comment that I want to make is that elections have consequences. And McCarthy, he's a hardcore politician. Yep. He's been at it for years. And he did not get enough of his people on his side to win in November. And that leaves him with 10% of his caucus who just hate him. And it's really kind of as simple as that. He didn't line up his ducks to get this done ahead of time. He had to have known ahead of time that this chaos was going to happen. This is all about Kevin McCarthy.
Well, I think to an extent, remember, I mean, the polls will show that the gains were going to be much bigger for Republicans. So he wasn't willing to make concessions to a group of 20.
I don't blame him.
Yet. Now, the polls were off, so that's part of the calculation he made at the time. Now you can look back, you can say, should have been working this group better, but no one else is either.
Yeah, I mean, you got Matt Gaetz is a perfect example. Matt Gaetz today says, now I'm not for Bishop, I'm for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Which gets one vote. Okay, that's the other. I mean,
so no one was seriously trying to outmaneuver Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, well, the caller that we're having phone trouble with was asking, what about Jim Jordan? Jim Jordan's a great guy. He's also a client of ours.
We love Jim Jordan. First day of the first vote.
He was the one who endorsed Kevin McCarthy. He did the nomination speech and then said he wants to be, which I don't blame him, the Judiciary Committee chairman. But this is, Wes, we talked about this the other day. This is, the more this is going on, and it's going to go on again.
Yes.
To round 8 for sure today. It's chaos.
Well, it's one thing to take a stand. They're not really taking a stand. They're protesting. And in America, the majority rules. And the majority of the Republican caucus wants Kevin McCarthy to be their leader, the Speaker of the House.
85%.
Yeah, and so this is America. Go with what the majority wants. They are not doing it. And again, it's not a cause they're standing for. It is a protest.
All right, well, that does it for today.
Yeah.
Just standing. There was a standing ovation. What was that
Maybe
about?
somebody did.
Do we know, Will? We don't know.
It's probably likely that somebody who was a no vote
said yes.
That's what I'm guessing. So again, but the no votes are still at 12. So 10 did not move.
No, 11, right? Yeah, 12 with the Gates one, right? Yeah. So there you go. All right, folks. We'll have more on this. Maybe it'll be resolved by the time Jordan does his Sekulow Brothers podcast this afternoon, folks. Get that on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. We'll be back for more tomorrow.